Hey, I'm Gabe.
I'm Kelley.
And I'm Terry.
And you know that it's getting to be winter because my voice is an octave deeper.
What's that, Kelley?
Your voice is always deeper than mine. Just so we're
Oh,
clear.
cool. Cool.
Just saying.
I am both deeper and older than Terry.
Not really.
No.
I think we need a. I'm going to get in a big pipe organ intro, and it'll be, welcome to Church Chat with Reverend Terry Williams.
I think that's lovely, but it needs to be like jazz organ and preferably like played by a drag queen because,
Okay.
like that's my style.
We'll hit up Nina West and see if she's down.
Absolutely.
Welcome back, Reverend Terry Williams. How you been?
I've been better. Like, if our state house would actually not, try to regulate people's free choice out of existence. But all things considered, I'm above ground, so this is good.
Okay.
Better than the alternative.
That's right.
And some days I wonder.
I'm a little salty, but I'm here, right?
Okay. Yeah, we've got stuff moving in Ohio.
When do we not?
Right, it just never stops.
Like sludge down a river. Right?
Like you would have thought that like the near total abortion ban in April would have been enough, but no, they're like, let's just keep regulating it. How can we fundraise if we can't keep regulating
They
it?
just have to keep something moving in the legislature to move this issue because why not? Just again and again and again. Even when they have to make up things, even when they have to lie
and that's
to
what
people
they're doing at this point. They're
and
making up things.
make laws that overlap other laws that we already have. That's now going to be really confusing. The poor prosecutors who might have to actually charge people under these statutes. I don't even know why they're wasting their time and ours, but they are. So,
well, because they fundraise off of it.
Yeah.
That's I think is one of the most sick layers of this is they pass these regulations which they may or may not take seriously themselves as elected officials, but then their fundraising directors send out letters to their big donors and say, hey, we passed another abortion restriction, send your check here.
And I think the other frustrating part for me looking at this process is they're not only getting the one benefit of being able to fundraise off of, laws that don't actually do anything. They're getting the benefit of being able to talk about an issue that they just they want to keep harping on again and again and again so that they don't have to talk about the real problems that are going on in our state. Right. We don't hear anything about, infant mortality unless it's from, a select group of folk who are bringing that forward and don't get to see that in committee or on the floor. We don't hear anything about maternal health, again, unless it's from that small cadre of folk who just don't have the votes to be able to bring that forward. So we just, as a state, keep talking about the same thing again and again and again, even though we know that the will of a majority of these legislators doesn't jive with the Constitution.
Right.
Yeah.
We did hear, just kind of jumping ahead in the agenda, we did hear about infant and maternal mortality this week, but we heard about it from the Democrats who were being outvoted.
Yeah.
And then in terms of kind of bigger picture,
I will say that bill did pass. Oh, was it a resolution? It was designating May as Maternal Health Month.
Well, that's something.
I mean, but it passed unanimously. Nobody voted against that.
Right.
Non-binding resolutions are fantastic.
It was introduced by Senator Maharath, so it was a Democrat that introduced it. It was passed.
That's a good thing, but
I mean, to Terry's point, it's not the people who supposedly care about mothers and babies that are introducing legislation to, like, at least highlight some of the issues that people go through after giving birth.
Right. Yeah. And then the other thing that came out yesterday that I thought was interesting was that there's for folks who don't know, there's a news service in the State House called Gongwer, and it's a paid subscription service, and nobody outside the state legislature subscribes to it. But
it's very good.
It is very good if you are really hardcore in state house politics. And so basically it's just lobbyists and legislators and their staff who subscribe to this service, but it's incredibly comprehensive. And
it's so good.
And so they went to the Speaker of the House, because the bills that we're talking about today, most of them were in the Senate. And so they said, hey, what do you think about these abortion restrictions that the Senate's passing over to you? And he didn't directly address the abortion restrictions, because big Larry Householder is he is anti-choice. He is our opponent in these bills. But he said, hey, we have some House bills that have been sent over to the Senate that are actual legislative priorities. Why is nobody working on these? And so, there's the admission from the Ohio Speaker of the House that the legislature is not doing the work that they need to be doing, but instead passing garbage, anti-abortion restrictions that are garbage.
And it's frustrating on kind of doubly frustrating for me that not only are they not doing the work that needs to be done, they're not even doing good work on the restrictions that they are trying to pass. I mean, I was pretty outraged yesterday sitting listening to speeches from the Senate floor, particularly you have Senator Lehner come forward and repeat the same talking points that she had at her press conference when she announced Senate Bill 155, right? That this fake medical science, junk science BS that she's putting forward, she used the same talking points at the end of the process as she did at the beginning, even though all of those talking points were addressed, particularly the idea that there's no way we can really study this and we shouldn't have to show any kind of, documented scientific evidence because it's impossible to study. Those ideas have totally been debunked again and again and again by person after person after person in-person testimony. And it just seems like she already wrote her floor speech before she had any hearings.
She probably did.
Yeah. So even in this process, you're not doing the work of the people that needs to get done. And even the work that you're doing, you're not doing it well or with due diligence or with any modicum of trust in the public. You're not actually doing your job. You are grandstanding, and it was basically theater from top to bottom. And I joked yesterday with a couple of colleagues. I said, the Ohio Senate right now is the best free theater you can get because there's really nothing else coming out of there right now except for entertainment from
I feel like
an odd perspective.
I feel like Senator Lehner just thinks that whoever is seeking an abortion hasn't thought about it long enough or thought about it hard enough, and will just change her mind if you can give her something else. And that's just not the case. People don't regret their abortions, by and large.
Well, and it was kind of appalling for me. I got to testify on 155 and 208, and to be asked by a senator in a hearing what my personal religious beliefs are, as if that should, my personal religious beliefs should inform
as you're standing there in
legislating
your
process.
reverend's collar,
right? And yet I was really taken aback, but it was a turning point for me because I realized the folk who are advancing this anti-choice agenda, they sincerely believe that my religious beliefs should somehow impact legislation, that my particular religious beliefs ought to bind somebody else's reproductive choices. And it dawned on me, of all people, ministers should probably, to some extent believe that our beliefs have impact, which we do. But we don't believe our beliefs should have impact on your choices, right? My beliefs impact my choices. And the idea that we have state senators who believe that my religious belief ought to bind somebody else's constitutional right is really scary.
It's weird.
It's really scary and through the looking glass bizarre.
Right. So while we're talking about these, we will jump totally ahead of the agenda here. So we had this week the fourth hearing for both Senate Bill 155 and 208. These are two bills that basically just make up lies about abortion and then put those lies into the Ohio Revised Code with the penalty of felony convictions for doctors and maybe women, maybe people seeking abortions. Depending on how those laws, those bills would be interpreted as laws. So we heard Jordan Close, the Reverend Al Debelak, and Dr. Anita Samani, who spoke on Senate Bill 155. This is Senator Lehner's abortion pill reversal bill. That says,
with all of the air quotes.
yes, with all of the air quotes.
Yeah.
That's not really a thing. The FDA has not approved this idea that you can just shove progesterone into a woman and have that abortion be reversed.
I mean, the Society for Family Planning sponsored like an actual study that was like scientifically sound, and it ended early because of like potential harm to like people who were involved in the study. So like we don't know the final results of it, but it's not looking good anyway.
Yeah.
Right. And that was one of their talking points, is they said, well, it's not possible to have a study. And
that's weird, because there is one.
And I think the struggle for me, as a person of faith who takes science very seriously, my original major, in undergrad was chemistry, right? So
I'm so bad at chemistry.
I passed organic chemistry, right? Like flying colors, and physical chemistry with a tremendous amount of work. Thank you, Dr. Dale Brew at Ohio Wesleyan University, if you're listening. No, but you begin in science, you begin to understand how incredibly complicated, particularly the human body is in terms of responding to different treatment protocol and stimuli. Bodies are complex. So you have to go through a very clear, standardized procedure for testing any kind of protocol, any kind of drug. And that process is through a double-blind study protocol. Double-blind study protocol does not have to be what Senator Lehner is throwing up as a straw man argument, right? Senator Lehner says, oh, this would be unethical. It wouldn't be. Actually, the study protocol that was put out at UC Davis had to go through multiple ethics boards. It had to go through multiple ethics certifications. It had lots and lots and lots of really good input in terms of how to do this ethically and within, a moral component of care for patients. And it had to be ended early because, we don't know exactly why until the study gets published, but some process in that whole procedure ended up having to shut the whole study down for safety concerns. So Senator Lehner's kind of making this argument that no, we can't possibly study this, when the reality is we're going to have this study done within the next few years. Eventually, something is going to come out of scientific import in the literature. But the state of Ohio and the state legislature has said, no, we don't need to worry about that. We don't need to wait for it. We're going to go forward because we know more. We are better than the doctors. We're better than the scientists. We who have been elected in this place as legislators are going to come right into the doctor's office. We're going to come right into the scientific laboratory, and we're going to tell you how this ends before the research begins. Any research scientist is going to tell you that's total bunk. But sadly, we don't have any research scientists sitting on, the committees that are hearing this.
The committee wouldn't listen to them if they walked in the door.
I mean, there are doctors in the Health Committee that still don't listen to them. So,
well, and Dr. Samani's testimony, if anybody listening to this has time, go listen to Dr. Anita Samani's testimony, because
we'll add the audio onto this show.
It was so very clear in her testimony that folk who were questioning her just did not want to accept the level of ambiguity that's inherent in medical science. Medical science is something that we send people to school for a long time to get right. And when they come out of that education and go through practice and, 15 years of practice, like Dr. Samani has been in as an OBGYN, in obstetrics, you're going to look at every single case individually. So when you're asked to make these huge sweeping generalizations, she was really clear. You can't make that claim. We do not have that level of certainty because medical science, and particularly the field of obstetrics, is so incredibly complex. What we do know is we have no evidence that this is a safe protocol. People have put out again and again, oh, progesterone's been used in pregnancy for years and it's completely safe to a pregnant woman. That may be true, but this is not simply giving someone progesterone. It's giving someone progesterone after the initiation of the Mifeprex protocol.
Right.
We have no research on this. We have no research on the drug interactions, the possible long-term side effects to, the mother, to the pregnancy, to anything else that's going. It is absolutely beyond our realm of expertise.
And then
Yet
they
the
passed
state
the
of
bill.
Ohio is making physicians make statements that are unproven and perhaps even dangerous for their patients.
Yeah, they're jeopardizing like the health of Ohioans, just for what?
To raise money.
Yeah,
I mean, at the end of the day, it is to advance these anti-choice bills so that they constantly have something in play that they can raise money off of, even if it means harming the health of Ohioans.
Right. So they passed Senate Bill 155 through the committee. They also did the fourth hearing on Senate Bill 208, which has nothing to do with how abortion actually works. This is a bill that
bill makes me sad.
well, that's what it's designed to do.
No, I mean like the fact that the Ohio legislature passed it and like did like the concept of like not even understanding why somebody would be seeking an abortion later in pregnancy is just upsetting to me. Like they don't have any modicum of compassion or empathy for these kind of circumstances, and it makes me sad.
Right.
Well, and two, the palliative care aspect that's negatively impacted by Senate Bill 208 is, for me as a pastor, is really concerned. Just for folks that aren't up to speed, Senate Bill 208 somehow seeks to prevent the lack of provision of care for a born alive infant, which of course, Senator Feder made very clear yesterday on the Senate floor. That's been illegal since 1974 under the Ohio Revised Code.
Right.
But nonetheless, we're gonna implement this new, this new legislation in this bill, and the bill not only strengthens that part of the legislation, it goes into all kinds of restrictions on particularly ambulatory surgical centers. It also makes some cloudy gray area when it comes to palliative care for infants. When a mother gives birth to a child that might have a fatal fetal anomaly or other concerning issues, that means that infant is not going to live very long. And as a pastor, I've been called into multiple situations where this has been the case, where we know that this pregnancy is going to result in a fetal death. Often it's a wanted pregnancy. It's going to result in a fetal death. And when that pregnancy turns into, a child, when birth happens, there's a very short period of time where the mother and, often the other spouse are able to physically hold and find comfort in that child. The question that still hasn't been answered under this bill is, will they still have that right? Because the way that this bill reads, if an infant is born alive and the doctor doesn't do everything possible to try to continue its life, the doctor could be held criminally negligent. Well, if I'm a doctor and I'm worried about this new law that's come out, I may decide that I have to, take that time between the time that infant is born and the time that we know that infant's going to die, and try to work on that infant to avoid the criminal consequences under 208.
Right.
For me as a pastor, I can't imagine what that would be like, particularly for, folk who have a moment with their child, sacred moment.
I can imagine it because when my first son was born, we spent 3 weeks in the NICU, and there was an infant that was born and then passed that same day. And, a NICU in a hospital, all of the little, cribs are all in one room. And so you're sitting there with your kid, and the people who have just lost this, this infant that was born that day, they're in the same room with you and they're going through hell, and you are just sitting there doing your best to blend into the wallpaper because you don't want to intrude on their private moment.
Yeah.
It feels like hell. Yeah. And so this bill shoves its way into there. So they passed this one too. And so then they went from committee on Tuesday straight to the Senate floor on Wednesday. Kelley, you organized a protest.
I did.
Oh.
I got enough people there, and I'm really excited about that. Yeah, we have in the past spelled out stop and in this case stop the lies, because it's going beyond bans. I mean, every past bill has been based on lies too, but this is just like a different level of nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
So just stop the lies, Ohio legislature, please, and thank you.
Right. So, I think it's a great form of protest, because you've got
We don't get kicked out for it.
it's basically established thanks to your action that if you want to have t-shirts spelling something out, you can stand right up on the rail as the senators vote, and you'll be literally just a couple feet away.
They have put all of those sofas in the Ohio Senate to try and hide some of the stuff we're doing, I think. But you can't stop me.
I got a request from one reporter to see if we could rearrange all of the letters of the people in t-shirts to spell something else, and I put "stop the lies" into one of those anagram generators, and "hitless poet" is the so I was told that sounds like a good punk band.
It does.
Hitless poet. So
It could be.
But yeah, so the Senate they passed both of these bills, so now they go on to the House. Over in the House, there's also House Bill 297, which got a hearing. All of these hearings were on Election Day also.
Yeah, because I don't know. I can't say that word on the radio. Blank us, I guess.
I don't remember them ever holding hearings on Election Day.
I remember hearing Burke say during committee, there's a bunch of other committees going on right now. And I was like, why are you lying, Burke? I know you are the only one in committee.
Right. So House Bill 297 got testimony from Ohio Right to Life and Heartbeat International, two organizations that are attempting to squeeze as much cash directly from Ohio taxpayers now through the form of a tax credit to go to donors, to fake women's health centers, crisis pregnancy centers, CPCs, whatever you want to call them.
And no one else.
Right.
They're milking taxpayer dollars for their own ideological purposes. And, I listened. I was not able to be, present for the Ways and Means hearing, but I put it on as I was writing, my sermon for the week. I mean, seriously, because, why not?
I can think of a few reasons why not, but
I mean,
right.
and that's okay. I don't need that kind of negativity in my life. No, those of us who follow this, it's a passionate concern where our tax dollars are going, particularly when we have a huge problem with housing and homelessness and people not being able to eat in this state. Hunger in this state is a huge issue. So when you start talking about where you're going to put tax incentives, I'm going to listen to that all day long. So, I had Ways and Means on in the background while I'm writing my sermon, and to hear that we think there, the folk in this committee think that there is a good idea around putting a carve out for this particular cottage industry of deception,
because, on top of the money they get from TANF already.
Yeah, because they already worked in what is it,
$7.5 million?
Oh, seven. See, my old numbers. So we're taking $7.5 million from temporary assistance for needy families and filling the coffers of Heartbeat International and Ohio Right to Life, so that their fake women's clinics can do deceptive work to try to steer people away from abortion services, and any kind of comprehensive health care for their pregnancy. It's really pretty ridiculous. So, I'm sitting here listening to these arguments that come out around, oh, we should get this carve out as opposed to everybody else because we do such unique work. And I'm sitting here thinking about all the organizations that support me as a parish pastor in Southern Ohio. I'm thinking about Mid-Ohio Food Bank. I'm thinking about folk in veterans organizations. I'm thinking about, housing and homelessness initiatives, people who do, affordable housing work.
People who do good and moral work.
I'm pretty sure that work directly impacts a whole lot of people in a way that would be fantastic for this carve out. Like if we're going to carve out a particular special exemption so that we can shove tax dollars into a particular industry, maybe we ought to worry about the kinds of things that
Opioid epidemic.
aren't being, otherwise addressed. Yeah. So, and I found it interesting that the folk from Heartbeat International wanted to make this big deal about, oh, we have like, hundreds of these community centers all around. Well, it sounds like they're doing pretty good already. I mean, if they have this much, community support, why are we then juicing the public again?
They're paying Candace Kelley plenty of money. They don't need any more.
Well, and I'm sitting here thinking like, if it's that sweet a deal, I mean, why are we going to go and then sweeten it again with taxpayer dollars? I hear so much in the Ohio legislature about free markets and letting like the free market decide and free market solutions, let people vote with their money. Why do we feel the need to force people to contribute to organizations that have an ideological bias that we know the majority of the state of Ohio doesn't agree with?
I mean, it's not even that for me. Like, I hear, like, I don't want my tax dollars to go to abortion. I do want my tax dollars to go to abortion. I don't want my tax dollars to go to this. So, like, it'd be cool if, like, either everybody gets what they want or nobody gets what they want. Like,
yeah.
Right. So that was the week in the
legislature.
Ohio State House. Kelley, do you want to let folks know about what's happening with Women's Med Center in Dayton?
Women's Med Center of Dayton is going through a time. So they applied for a variance, were rejected for that variance. They are appealing that decision. And also the Ohio Supreme Court refused to reconsider their decision on transfer agreements. So they are currently applying for a temporary restraining order at the federal level because this court case is also in federal court. So what is it? Did I miss anything? I feel like that was a lot.
It felt like a lot, but I mean, basically, you've got it right there.
You said something about a new affidavit. That's something I don't know much about.
Yeah. So as the clinic applied for this restraining order in federal court, the clinic's attorneys were able to submit new documents. We heard from a former director of emergency medicine for Miami Valley Hospitals, who.
The ones associated with Premier?
I'm not sure.
They are.
Okay. Sorry. So basically, he sent in to the federal courts a 25-page long affidavit.
That's so many pages.
That explains all of the many, many, many ways that this written transfer agreement that the state requires has nothing to do with anything related to medical emergencies. He's saying that if there's a medical emergency at any location, the ambulance driver, paramedic, EMT won't know about a written transfer agreement
because it's not a thing.
It's fake news, folks.
He's gonna go to the closest hospital because federal law trumps state law. Like whatever.
He's saying how the doctor in the emergency room, the chief resident, whoever is the main go-to doctor in the hospital, both in the ER. And if they need an OBGYN from the obstetrics floor, none of these medical professionals, the doctors, the nurses, the admitting staff, none of them will even know that this written transfer agreement exists. He said the only reason he was aware of it is because he was the chief of staff for the hospital, and it came across his desk as an administrative, bureaucratic piece of paper.
Pushers know.
But the actual healthcare providers, the doctors and nurses and ambulance drivers, don't know squat about transfer agreements. And so that's why these are completely unnecessary. But the state requires them.
And as is the case with so much of what's coming out of our state house, like at the end of the day, the people who count don't care. And the people who care should not count, but they sadly do.
Right.
And that's our situation with these transfer agreements. Kelley, I've got to say, I really appreciate all the work that you have done organizing folk, in the Dayton area around this, because as a parish pastor in Chillicothe, Ohio,
I love Dayton.
that's one of our nearest options for most people in our region. If Columbus is not convenient for them, or there's scheduling issues, being able to have that healthcare option.
Well, we saw from 2017 to 2018, the Ohio abortion report came out, and we saw numbers of patients seen at Dayton increase between those 2 years. So like it is a very critical clinic in this state, and it will be really bad for Ohioans if it closes.
And it's very critical.
It's also just a good clinic. It's got
right.
good doctors. It's got good staff. It's just a good clinic.
And they serve a critical population, folk who are typically underserved, people in rural Appalachia. They serve a larger percentage of rural Appalachians in that clinic than most clinics in our state, because they're not in one of the big 3C cities. And the idea that healthcare is being threatened right now means that vulnerable communities are being threatened in the state, in a way that will have such a deep impact across not just that local region, but across the entire state, because it will, not having an additional resource means that all the other resources are going to be additionally taxed. Not to mention, there are going to be a lot of women that if they can't have their healthcare in that place, they won't have their healthcare, period. This is life and death for a lot of people.
Right. Okay. So upcoming events, Hannah, your team is at every melt location everywhere.
In Cleveland, Hannah is kicking a lot of ass. I think we have 5 events at the various melt locations. So it's Melt Stigma. It's an abortion stigma busting event in Northeast Ohio. I think the first one is actually tonight. The flyer for the event is on our Instagram and probably also the Facebook event. So if you go between 5 and 7 and mention NARAL and show the flyer, I think we get a percentage back, which is really exciting.
Yes.
Yeah. There's going to be a little photo booth. It's going to be fun. You get to hang out with a bunch of other people and then eat grilled cheese.
Nice.
Just the grilled cheese as big as your head. Just a pound of cheese. It'll be fine.
Yep.
And then another thing she's doing, and I don't think the details are finalized, but it's still really exciting, is on the 22nd of November, there is going to be a flash tattoo fundraiser in Cleveland. So you can go get a pro-choice and or a grilled cheese tattoo. And I think a percentage of that kicks back to us too. So
nice.
A lot of cool,
Fabulous.
I know, just cool
Fabulous.
things happening in Northeast Ohio. I want to do a flash tattoo event in Columbus, or maybe even Cincinnati. Cincinnati, get at me. No, I want it in Dayton. That's what I want.
Yes.
All right.
Yes,
I'm going to see what I can do.
Okay. And then the last event we get to promote this week, November 19th, coming up, is the next Stand Up for Choice.
I forgot about that. Yeah. No, that's yep. That's an event I have to table at. The money comes back to NARAL. Come hang out with me. Laugh at some jokes. Get ready for Thanksgiving.
Oh, can I throw in a teaser here?
Yeah.
So Ohio RCRC, Religious Coalition for Reproductive Choice here in Ohio, and Women Have Options Ohio are currently working on the rollout. You're going to see it in the next couple of weeks. The rollout of our abortion care package program.
That's right. I wanted to work with you guys to do a kickoff event.
It's going to be amazing. We've engaged really awesome local artists to put together graphics for a couple of our publications that are going to be included in this, a resource zine, right, for folk post-abortion care, just to give not only, spiritual and emotional support, but also the practical support. This is how you make a, rice heating pad with a clean sock and a microwave, right? Things that, folk who are going through that post-recovery process are going to be looking at. So our goal, these packages, they're going to be assembled by communities, whether, it's your faith community, Bible study group, maybe the people that you watch your kids play with and try not to, lose one of them with. It just depends. Whatever group of people you can think of that you spend any time at all with, can go ahead and contact us. We can come and present to you exactly what the program is, what it looks like, and how to assemble these items. And each of these care packages, you end up with a lot of really great stuff for folk who are in that post-abortion process. So like, heavy sanitary pads, some nice, herbal tea, get everything rolling, granola bars, those kind of things. Just some tangible expression that folk can take with them when they go from a clinic experience. And our goal is to be able to produce these for any clinic in Ohio that wants them, and to make sure that anybody who has an abortion in the state of Ohio goes home with one of these care packages that says, we are with you, we support you, here are all the resources, and by the way, we're with you, you're not alone in this process. So with all the stigma coming out of the State House and all the lack of compassion that we see in the characterization of this healthcare, we want to be able to be that expression of care for folk. So again, Ohio Religious Coalition for Reproductive Choice and Women Have Options Ohio are going to be rolling that out next week or so. And just like keep in the back of your mind, we have with Ohio RCRC actually today, tomorrow, and Saturday, comprehensive sex ed training for facilitators. We're doing that here in Ohio. It had to be pre-registered, but just keep it on your radar. We're going to be doing these a few times throughout the year because comprehensive sex ed is really important, and it's not getting taught or funded or even talked about in the legislature.
You're doing it with our Whole Lives program, right?
Yes.
I would love to see the young adult programming.
Yeah.
Like the training's great, but I'm a young adult and I would like to actually participate in that. So if that ever,
absolutely,
I'd be down to like co-host that.
So that's really exciting for me because our process, there, for those who aren't aware, our Whole Lives has multiple age levels, and right now we're doing the 4th grade to 6th grade. And we're going to be fundraising to try to put on additional units because, we have a limited budget, but we've heard so many people say, oh, we'd really be interested in this. So we're going to be fundraising for our next unit of, bringing facilitators here to Ohio and
7 to
trying
9.
to participate in it. We haven't decided yet. So if you're interested in the young adult, we can make that happen. I think we have some connections.
I'm just really interested to see what that's like.
Yeah, because at the end of the day,
it is our Whole Lives.
When people start talking about abortion, like the first conversation that they go to is around unwanted pregnancy. And regardless of your perspective, I think we can agree that if we could help people be empowered to have pregnancies when they want to have pregnancies and not have pregnancies when they don't want to have pregnancies, that might be a good idea. Right now, we're doing that on the shoestring budget instead of getting the $7.5 million from TANF or any other funding from the state legislature. Right. Still salty. End of the podcast. Still salty right here, Reverend Williams. Okay. But yeah, just keep us in prayer over that. I will ask, or good intentions, or whatever your spiritual.
I'm gonna bring back in that jazz organ here at the end. Okay,
play him off.
Thank you very much for coming, Reverend Terry Williams, and we'll see everybody else next week. Bye.
We can totally do that.
That'd be so cool.
We can totally do that. Yeah, because
I just thought it was so interesting. Like when I went through training for, I think I did 4th through 9th grade totally. I didn't even know they had like a young adult one, like till like it was like to 35, and I was like, that's